What is up? It is time for Making the Grade, our weekly look at the PFF grades from the Arizona Cardinals games. And I'll tell you what, this is going to be a very different episode than last week. Last week was probably the worst offensive performance I've seen as a Cardinals fan. We talked about it was a rough week, but what a difference a week makes. Kyler Murray is back. The Cardinals have a W. And there's a lot to be excited about, both in terms of what we saw on the field in the game and in terms of what the grades show and reflect, right? So we're going to get into the grades. We're going to do what we do. This is going to be a lot more fun than last week looking at these grades. Let's say hey to some of the folks in here. We got Thunder, great win. Have you checked in on Isaiah Simmons lately? I hadn't until I saw your comment, but I will take a quick second, take a look at his grades. I brought him up. And Isaiah Simmons has been grading reasonably well off and on. He's had good games and bad games. It's up and down. His overall grade is at 67.6, which is a little bit lower than he did the year before. He's doing all right for them. His snaps aren't great, though. Look, the last couple of games, 12, 13 snaps. So, good for him. So yeah, in terms of what he's doing, but we got Nick L. Murray is back. I am so excited, right? That is the story, at least the first story, although there's another really big story, which is Trey McBride's performance, right? But having Murray back makes all the difference for this team in so many ways. Salty's Gaming, what is up, my friend? I appreciate you being here. Everyone check out his gaming channel. Salty, good dude. Thanks for hanging out with us. Brett Jones, let's effing go. Cards 100%. This was a fun game to watch, right? The Cardinals are fun to watch again. Like that's one of the big storylines here, right? Classy Nass, thanks for being here. What's up, Professor? Tell us something good. I got some good things to tell you. For sure. So let's get into it. Let's look at the grades, okay? We're going to start on the offensive side. And right here, holy hell, 96.2 for Trey McBride. That is a remarkably high grade. You don't see grades that high all the time. That is a nearly flawless game. His passing grade was 94.3. He had some really nice catches. We saw, the one where Kyler had that great throw. He was I think there was the pass interference flag thrown on it anyway, and he still caught it. There was the one, in the end that set up the winning field goal where he came back and it wasn't a great throw by Kyler, but McBride came back and came back to where the ball was, made the play, and his run blocking was solid. Just, he had a good game a couple weeks back with the 90 something yards, but this was really the game where he really made a name for himself. In fact, let's take a quick look at his grades. I know we get to the tight ends a little bit later usually, but I wanted to jump right into it because Trey McBride, as much as Kyler was the biggest story overall being back, this was the biggest performance and a really important story as well. He's been solid throughout the year, right? You see grades in the 60s, 70s, a few off games here and there. So he's been solid, but this was one heck of a game. And his grade overall 79.6, which is outstanding. McBride has emerged as a legit tight end one, I think, in this league. And, I know a lot of people were looking for this to be that year, and it started out a little bit slow, with Ertz getting some of the snaps, and Ertz got injured, and McBride's been getting the snaps, and he's been up to the challenge. And I know some people were down on him his rookie year, but tight ends take time. This is on schedule. If you draft a tight end, where you drafted him early in the second round, or somewhere in day 1 or 2, a tight end that you expect to be a really good player. What you typically, look for, or what you would expect in terms of the progression, is the first year is going to be bumpy, and somewhere in year 2, it's going to start to click. So he's right on schedule. Brett Jones is asking, how does that relate with other tight ends? That is a great question. Why don't we get back to PFF player grades and look by position, right? Tight end. And let's take a look at where he ranks. Listen, you got some folks up here that are, guys like George Kittle, Travis Kelce, but McBride, 4th highest graded tight end, right? That's that right there. Graded number 4. That is something to see, right? So definitely excited about that. Cruz Espudo, thanks for being here. The Bills are horrible. Can't even watch this game. Yeah, I'm not watching it either. Jake Werderly, thanks for being here. That was an underthrown by Kyler, but McBride bailed him out there. He did throw the DB out of the way, though. Yeah. So, that was definitely that play was underthrown, but McBride made it happen. Yeah, that's an elite grading by McBride. So, I tweeted out K1 to McBride for the next decade. This is the way, right? That's everyone's talking about, are they going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr., and the Hollywood Brown, and though, whatever ends up happening there, Michael Wilson we're excited about. And those are, all names to be excited about, or potentially Marvin Harrison Jr., no doubt. But like Trey McBride, that connection, work in the middle of the field, and even down deep, right? That is going to be one to watch for a while, right? Austin Hoy, thanks for being here. I wonder what McBride's yards per run route is. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I know I saw someone tweeted that out, right? Jake Morley saying they probably won't get MHJ anymore. They won't be tough. Yeah, they might not be in that spot, but I'll tell you what, I'm liking the pieces they have here. So let's go ahead and get into it, though. I always like to start with, the offensive line, right? So we'll sort this here by pass rush snaps, or pass blocking snaps. I'm sorry, to get all the offensive linemen up here. And overall, this was a solid game by the offensive line. It was one of their better games overall across the board. It was Paris Johnson Jr.'s best game of his young career so far, at a grade of 69.6. His pass blocking grade 81.7, run blocking 66.9. In fact, when you look at here are his games throughout the year, you see that 69.6 is his best game. The Giants game was the next best. So this was his best pass blocking game by a good bit, 81.7. Run blocking, it was also his best game there. So this was across the board a really good game for Paris Johnson Jr. As far as his grades go. Carter O'Donnell stepped in, injury replacement, played solid, 64.1, with a good pass blocking grade. Right, 79.7. Hernandez struggled a little bit. Remember, he's kind of banged up. We weren't even sure if he'd be playing. So, you have to wonder how much injury came into play there. Froholt, didn't have a great game. Froholt has been kind of like this all year. His grades have never been great throughout the season. Maybe he's had one or two. He had a decent game against Dallas. A lot of mediocre grades, grading out at 56.3 for the season. I think he's in there because he knows the system, and he's doing other things that they want, but he's been at. And Beachum, listen, I know people don't love Beachum, he's for a number of reasons, but he graded solidly, right? Stepping in at left tackle. So the pass blocking, I think, was a little bit better than run blocking you see here, right? And it did feel like, watching the game to the eye test, it felt like Kyler had the time he needed. I think they got a couple sacks on him, but it felt like in general he had the time he needed, and he wasn't getting, an inordinate amount of pressure. So that pass blocking grades that we're seeing there, at least, on three of those guys, that kind of reinforces what I remember seeing from the eye test. Austin has those yards per route run. I think I saw someone tweeted that out. So McBride's yards per route run is 2.39, second only behind Travis Kelce, 2.43, right? Corey Cards, what is up? Thanks for hanging out with us. Corey has a podcast where they talk Cardinal stuff. Definitely want to check them out on YouTube. Throw the name of that in there, your podcast name, so folks can look it up there. But yeah, so offensive line was solid, especially in the pass blocking. The run blocking, was okay. Right. So offensive line did a decent job. Let's go ahead and sort it by position so we can get into the tight ends. So we talked about McBride, just stellar game by McBride. Love what we're seeing. Excited about McBride and, kind of what he's bringing to the table. Jeff Swain, had a decent game. He's, again, more of a blocker for them. He had 16 passing snaps. He's doing what he's been doing. He's been a solid kind of, back or depth sort of tight end, right? In their 2 and 3 tight end sets. Higgins struggled And I think the play we all remember from him and we all saw was the pass off his fingertips, right? I mean, it wasn't even, it was perfectly thrown. He ran the route, the ball was there, and he just dropped it. And he was, you could tell he was upset about that when he did that. So that's a rough one. And with what we're seeing with McBride emerging, we know Ertz, what has been a good player, but injuries, he's older. And this offense, they want to have multiple tight ends. I do think that when we start getting into draft season, I think what I know I'm going to be of the mind that they probably need to get, draft another tight end, maybe, somewhere between rounds 3 and 5, to add some, to add a second guy to build with McBride, because they're going to want to, this offense is going to, I think, have at least 2 tight ends they're going to be leaning on for a long time. So they got McBride, who just is looking like he's emerging as a tight end 1. They're going to need to get someone else that they can build with as far as that goes. Thunder saying Higgins got wide open, at least he'll be back for more. Yeah, I mean, listen, you don't want to define a person's career based on one drop. Hopefully he can make up for that. Corey's saying Card Analytics thing show. Yeah, so check them out on YouTube. They're doing some good stuff. Him and Rashad and another gentleman who I don't know his name, but I know I follow him on Twitter. So yeah. Love what we're seeing from McBride. Swaim continues to be just kind of solid depth piece, doing his job. Would like to see maybe Higgins kind of come back from that drop and see him kind of develop into he's a I believe as a receiver converted. He played at Stanford, and I think they converted him to tight end, if I'm not mistaken, when he came out. He's had, you look at his grades on limited snaps against Seattle was okay-ish, so, right? But he is a undrafted or a 6th round pick. Okay. Dolphins picked him in round 6. And yeah, in the draft, right? So, looking at receivers, Rondale Moore's grades continue to not be great. This is, they're using him as a gadget player, and I'll tell you, like, he doesn't, when I watch him on the film, he doesn't look bad. I just want, it feels like just the way they're using him is limited. The kinds of routes they're running with him and what, his running plays, they've had some nice plays with him, but they're just, he's not a major part of the offense, but he does have a role as sort of that gadget player, and in the slot a bit. Sinister, thanks for being here. Hey Joe, has Travis Kelce even scored this high this season? This is crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Kelce is certainly getting recognition for other things, but I don't know if he's had a game like that or not. I haven't looked closely enough. That's a good question. If anyone knows, let us know. Michael Wilson, graded okay. He had a couple of nice receptions, right? So he's continuing to do what he does. Marquise Hollywood Brown, Hollywood had kind of a quiet game. He had a few catches. He had the one off his fingertips. That was, he almost had a chance that it was just literally Kyler just overthrew him by just, a few inches. Would love to have that back, but it was, close. Dortch only had 1 snap, had certainly a nice, return, the kick, was it a punt return or a kick return? I think it was a punt return, but had a nice return that set up something for the Cardinals. Right. And then Pascal, didn't grade well. He only was in there for 3 snaps, so was not really an impact, at least, in the game on offense, maybe in special teams. But receivers, decent. This was much more of a tight end game, right? Or really a Trey McBride game, but the receivers, here and there made some catches. Now getting Clayton Tune, had his 2 snaps, right? The quarterback sneak, right? That they put him in on. And then the fake sneak, I think they were kind of trying to use him as a decoy. And then they kind of pitched it, right? To get the first down. Kyler Murray. Now you look at his grade, Kyler Murray's grade, his grade was 65.6. His running grade was 82.8 and his passing grade was 60. And I think some people might, look at that, and think that's a little low in terms of the passing grade, but I will say this. I actually don't think that passing grade is low. Kyler had a really good game, especially considering it was his first game back from injury. He ran the ball well. That was really encouraging to see. You know, I thought he would be much more limited in running because they always talk about with ACL injuries, the running is the thing that takes longer to come back. And, you know, if this is him at 90%, recovered in from the running being at 90%, you know, because usually they say it takes till the following season till it's 100%. Then wait till he's 100%, right, with the running. I mean, that play he converted, that third down that he converted that kept that score, you know, the game-winning drive going was huge, right? Huge play. And he looked like Kyler Vold. Now, the passing game, he had some nice pass. I mean, that throw to McBride, was really nice. The one where he was kind of running a corner route. There were a couple other nice throws, but there were a lot of throws that I watched that they were off. There was the throw that we talked about earlier where McBride came back and made a play on it, right? That was not a throw that would have been graded favorably by PFF, and it shouldn't have been. McBride made that play, right? There were a couple other throws like to Michael Wilson where there was the one where he kind of threw a timer out to Michael Wilson along the sideline and it ended up hitting, the cornerback AJ Terrell right in the back of the head. There were throws like that were off and certainly throws that were tipped. So, I'm certainly not, bagging on Kyler. I think overall, considering his first game back from an injury, right, in a new system, for all the rust that could be, he had a great game. The passing had its moments. But I think that grade for the passing grade to me actually seems fair with what I saw with the eye test. There were a number of throws that were off, but he did command the offense. I think he made good decisions in terms of who he was throwing it to. Just a few of them that were off. And he ran the ball effectively. I mean, it's only going to go up from here, in my opinion, as he gets more settled in. So I don't have any problem with that grade. And I still think it was a really good game for Kyler overall. Right. So real excited about that. In terms of the running backs, Ingram didn't grade particularly well. Tony Jones Jr. on limited snaps graded okay. James Conner didn't have the best grade. He pass blocking was good. His running grade was 62.9, which is okay. He had a couple nice runs, but there were a couple that didn't get as much, and didn't go as far. So, the running game was okay, right? But overall, I think again the pass Kyler's running and McBride his pass catching that was really the story here. So overall in offense, so a couple really big bright spots, decent performance by the offensive line, and overall though a real exciting game. Thunder saying Kyler said no safety in the league can cover McBride. He's going to keep getting targets. Yeah, right. I mean, McBride is looking like it's not just the stats, right? He is just he's looking tough to defend. I mean, he's aggressive. He's making good catches. The run after catch is looking good. I'm real excited by what we're seeing in McBride here. So that's what we got on the offensive side of things, right? Now looking at the defensive side of things. Now on the defensive side, there were also some really, really good grades. In fact, I'd say overall the defense had more high grades than the offense, though it also had more very low grades. We'll get to that. Certainly looking at Ojulari and Zayvon Collins. Let's go ahead and do this by position, though, so we can kind of start looking at position groups. Looking at safeties, Jalen Thompson, Buda Baker, solid grades, mid-60s for Jalen, Buda, low 70s. Again, they draw a lot of difficult assignments because of the young cornerbacks. So I think their grades are going to be down a little bit, because when sometimes you have players, we've talked about this before. If you have a player who has more responsibility, tougher assignments, sometimes their grades are going to be suppressed a little bit because of what's being asked of them. And I think when you've got rookie cornerbacks, like Garrett Williams, who's playing really well, don't get me wrong, and Starling Thomas and, Marco Wilson, who's been kind of up and down, but more down than up. I think the safeties are doing a lot more, probably, or have more responsibility to help with that. But overall, they graded well. We've got a couple snaps. Sashiri, I never get this right. He had 3 snaps, so just minimal snaps there at safety. So it's really the 2 safeties, solid grades there. Getting to the corner, Garrett Williams had his best game so far. Here you look at here's his game by game. Since he's been back to the 4 games, he played well against Baltimore. This was his best game at 73.9. He has been solid. His overall grade 67.8. Listen, I loved the draft pick. The talent. They just obviously had to wait for him to be ready because of the injury. But solid player. Love what we got from him, what we're getting from him. He is still, if you look at it in terms of alignment, he's playing primarily in the slot, right? They're still keeping him in the slot. I hope at some point they're going to move him outside. That's really where you want your best cornerbacks outside. But listen, he's doing a good job in the slot for them. You also see his snaps, 52. This is the most snaps he's played this season. So we also see his snaps every week have gone up, right? So and he plays really well. So Garrett Williams is really putting himself in position to be a key part of this defense. And man, if it, again, he needs to get moved outside. We need to see how he grades there because it's a different sort of responsibility there. When you're cornerback 1, you're going to get targeted more. So we need to see what he looks like then. But I am really excited about what we're seeing from him. And it wouldn't shock me if by the end of the year, he's cornerback 1, or certainly going into next year, depending on what happens for agency or the draft, he could be cornerback 1 on the team if he continues to progress. But Garrett Williams, another player to be really excited about right now for this Cardinals team. And then let's look at the rest of the cornerbacks before we get here. Marco Wilson, his coverage grade of 67.9 is pretty okay, right? Not bad. He's just struggled in the tackling and the run blocking, which brought his overall grade down. Marco Wilson it's been tough for him, and we bagged on him a lot this season, a lot of up and down for him, not grading particularly well. Again, he's having to be cornerback 1, which is a lot to ask of him. So, this game was tough. The coverage grade was good. The rest wasn't great. Looking at the rest of the cornerbacks, we have Starling Thomas, undrafted rookie free agent. Grade wasn't great, but again, he's playing a lot of snaps, starter 6. So you're getting an undrafted rookie free agent. It's gonna be tough at points. Antonio Hamilton graded really well, 69.0. He's a solid cornerback, they're playing him a good bit. And I think, here's the tricky thing with him is this: he's almost 31 years old, right? So Hamilton is a good player. He's one of their better cornerbacks on the roster. He's had a few down games, but overall graded, reasonably well. You look at through his career, the last 3 years with the Cardinals, graded in the 60s, solid player. The tough part here with him is that you're trying to develop the young player. So it's like, do you play the guy who's a little bit better than your cornerbacks, or do you play the young guys more? And they early in the season they weren't playing Hamilton much, so they were leaning toward the young guys. They're playing him a bit more now, and he's again had a good game. So going back up here now, let's look at the outside linebackers, our edge rushers. Ojulari, first NFL sack, got 2 sacks this game. Really nice game for him. But not only did he get the sacks, like you look at his grades, he was solid across the board. In fact, his pass rush grade of 66.2 was actually the lowest part of his grade, and that's a solid grade. His grading coverage, his tackling, run defense were all good. 85.7. That is just an outstanding grade for him. Also, though, let's look at something else important. His snaps. they also have been trending up. This 37 snaps, that is the most he's played by a good bit, right? By a lot, almost twice, what he's played in previous games. So, with edge rushers, again, they sometimes they start them out slow in terms of snaps, and they increase the workload as they kind of got better. And what we do seem to be seeing recently a little bit more of a workload for him, and that 37 snaps and very effective in those snaps. My hope is that what this signals is that it's clicked. Whatever it was that the coaches were hoping to see from him that makes them feel confident that they can play him more snaps. Hopefully something's clicked. It certainly looked like it on the field. So BJ Ojulari, yet another part of this draft class that is just looking really, really good, right? So Ojulari out, just a really great game there, right? Luqueta, his grade was a bit low on limited snaps, right? Struggled a bit. Gardeck had a sack. His grade was okay, right? Struggled a little bit in the run defense, but listen, Gardeck, that's the thing with him. He's more of a pass rush specialist. He's going to struggle sometimes against the run, but he's going to be a guy who's going to get to the quarterback, right? His run defense grades have been okay. His pass rushes grades have been higher, though, right? His overall pass rush grade this year's 77, whereas his run defense of 58.5, right? So, that's the thing you're going to see with him. Good game overall, though, getting that sack, no doubt. Left out now. I'm going to come back to Cameron Thomas because I want to talk about that in a second. But Zaven Collins, a solid game from him. His pass rush grade, we've talked about that a lot. That he's kind of developing as a pass rusher. 67.6 is solid. His run defense grade was good. 82.09 overall. So we're having he's had certainly a nice game. And when we look at the season long, it's trended really nice lately. In fact, he started out a little bit lower since, the Cincinnati game. He's been, 60s and better. So in the last two games, graded in the 80s, really coming, along in the system. And you look at his overall grade of 75.0, that's solid. So Zaven Collins is really taking, to this defense, it seems, even though there's still maybe some questions, about him as an edge rusher. But the way they're using him, I think, is probably a little more of a hybrid in terms of run defense and pass rush. It seems to be working, and the grades are good. So I'm not going to question it too much at this point. Dimikaji, not a great game grade wise. Decent pass rush grade for him. Cameron Thomas had a really rough game, and I'm a little worried about Cameron Thomas. You look at his grades over the year. First half of the season, he was pretty consistently in the mid 60s, had a bad game against San Francisco, but, mid to upper 60s, which is solid. The sacks haven't been there, but, you look at the grade and you're like, okay, well, he's doing his job, right? But lately it's been down. But you also look at, the snap, like he had a lot of snaps against Cleveland, 39, right? The most he had all season. But that was sandwiched by 17 snaps at Baltimore, 15 here against Atlanta. Ojulari's getting more snaps. Someone's going to lose snaps. And right now it's looking like Cameron Thomas. It's really disappointing. Myjai Sanders obviously was released. One of the third-round pass rushers from last year's draft that we were hoping was going to look good and be part of the future was gone. And okay, Cameron Thomas, maybe he's still going to be a part of this future. And he still might. But this trend is concerning for him, right? Grades are down, snaps down here. I don't know. We're going to have to see what the future holds, but that's not a good trend for him, for Cameron Thomas. Brett Jones saying Stills has been a steal for sure. In fact, let's look at the defensive line, starting with Stills, 80.8. I mean, he was much better against the run. The run defense grade was the high point here, right? But man, another part of this Monty Ossenfort draft class, right? You look at it, again, we've looked at him every week. He started out slow. Grades have gotten better, and they've been consistently, Seattle was a little rough game, but man, solid grades. Snaps up here in the 40s. He's grading at 65.5. for a 6th round pick, that is a steal. He looks like just a guy who's going to be a part of this defensive rotation, the defensive line. You need guys like that. I mean, man, what more you can say about Monty Austin fourth draft class, right? Paris Johnson Jr., has been solid. He's going to get better. Ojulari's coming on now. We know about Michael Wilson, what we like about him. Garrett Williams, right? And, just really an outstanding draft class. Certainly Keitrell Clark has been has kind of disappeared after starting early on. I still think he's going to develop hopefully into kind of at least a good depth piece. Really love what we're seeing out of this draft class. So Dante Stills, great game for him overall. Love what we're seeing from him. Roy Lopez, not a great game. Okay, 57.7. I know he got banged up a little bit. Fotu had another bad game. Listen, we talk about him every week. He's had a few good games this year, but more bad games than good. Advanced metrics just don't reflect that he's been very good for them at all. They, 6'5", 334. They like his size. He's had a few okay games, but overall grading 42.5. Again, it's a low bar. It's his best grade of his career, but I think I'd be surprised if Leki Fotu is back next year. I really would be. I think they're gonna find someone else to play that nose tackle in the draft this year or in free agency. It's been rough, right? Roy Lopez looks like a guy though who could be a part of a depth rotation because his grades have been better. Like those aren't amazing grades, but if that's your guy who's like a backup or part of rotation at nose tackle, you'll take that. In fact, there are starting nose tackles that grade like that, right? So, Lopez had more snaps than Fotu, so maybe that's a trend we'll see, right? Lotu isn't making next year's roster. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. Stills a 6th round star. Amazing. Collier and Watkins back next year. Find a monster DT in the draft. I'd like to see them get a couple defensive linemen in the draft, or at least one in the draft, one in free agency. But yeah. I mean, I'd like to see Roy Lopez come back as be a depth piece. Fotu, though, I just don't see it. Kevin Strong, he got banked. Went down with injury a couple times. Graded well. He's played well when he can be healthy, but the problem is being healthy with him, right? He's missed some games. I think at least we missed week 8. Keeps getting banged up, but it's been solid. But yeah. So we had Kevin Strong. I think that's all the defensive. Jonathan Ledbetter, not a great game from him. Jonathan Ledbetter is just another one there's a lot of guys that are playing that 2 years from now, when they've built this roster up the way they want to, won't be starting if on the team at all. And, I think Ledbetter's one of those guys. He's a guy who is, he's a veteran. He's kind of got a little bit of a bubble player, but he's playing for him now, but they're going to look to upgrade, I think. In terms of linebackers, we've got Josh Wood had a nice game, 71.5. Kaiser White, 67.5. White's grades have been down a bit lately. You look at it, the 45.5, 59.9. It's been up and down. He started out these, he had more good games up here, but it has been up and down. This is a solid game for him, though, overall. Josh Woods, his grades overall, so we look at it throughout the season, started out really rough. They've been much better of late. If you look at that, the Cleveland game wasn't great, but overall he's graded, his overall grade is still 45.1. It looks like, but of late it's been much better. So we'll see if that continues to trend that way. So, overall, the grades on defense, there's a lot of nice things to see. Garrett Williams, Dante Stills, Zaven Collins, BJ Ojulari, right? Overall, this was a solid game for the Cardinals, right? And it's an exciting direction. I think this team, it's going to be exciting to watch. I think they're going to win at least a couple more games. especially the offensive side is just going to be clicking more. Brian, thanks for being here, my friend. Joe, I made a stream. You're doing such an amazing job. We truly love and support all you do. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you. Brian's a really thoughtful guy who's been part of our community for a while. We follow each other on Twitter. I appreciate you, Brian. Thanks for hanging out with us. So, yeah, seeing a lot of things we like. Let's real quick look at the Falcons games, our grades, right? Well, I like to look at the opposing team's grades. On the Falcons, you see that like a lot of their best grades were their offensive line. And that shouldn't be a surprise to you because the Falcons have a very good offensive line. That's the biggest strength. That and running back are the two biggest strengths of their team. Bergeron, rookie, struggling pass blocking, but overall was better in run blocking. Dahlman, not the best game, but McGarry, Lindstrom had really good games. Jake Matthews struggled, right? But, overall, they've got a good offensive line. You see Drake London had a nice game. Scotty Miller had that touchdown, nice game. Algier, okay. Heineke, their quarterbacks, Heineke, right? Ran better than passed. Ritter, not great, right? And then you see, got down here, their tight ends. We did a good job, stopping Bijan Robinson and the receiver. Those guys we did a good job against him. It was London and Miller that they were where we struggled a bit. On defense, AJ Terrell had a good game. Then there's a lot of games, right? Okay-ish games and some bad games, right? So even our buddy Calais Campbell, who we love, right? So overall, the grades here on Atlanta's side reflect that the Cardinals gave them some fits, right? Especially one Mr. Trey McBride, right? McBride's season is upon us. So that's kind of what we see from Atlanta. So let's look at I like to look at the Arizona Cardinals grades. I think player grades. Let's go to the Cardinals and I like to look kind of like the lineups and see how it looks now with everything going on. So on the defensive side, when we've got the base defense, they set up as a 3-4. The safeties are looking good with Baker and Thompson, Gardeck and Collins looking good. A little weak up the middle. Cornerbacks are When you switch it to the nickel, the players they have setting there looks much better. You get Dimication, Collins, Ojulari, Gardeck. This is who they populate there on this. I don't necessarily think that's what that defense necessarily looks like. But, you get Williams in there at the nickel, right? Really brings that up a bit. So, the defense is a work in progress, but there's some players like Stills and Williams that are really coming on. So you like what we see there. On the offensive side, it is so nice to see one Kyler Murray here listed as the quarterback and James Conner too, right? And the grades, when you look at the offense, the grades wise, this looks pretty solid. Kyler's grades are going to go up, as the season goes on, but the skill positions, the offensive line is, a little mediocre, but overall it's looking better than it had. We'll switch it over to the two tight end sets here, and then that gets Swaim in there, right? So overall the grades looking solid there. But yeah. Still need an upgrade middle linebacker. Yeah, we do. I think that's a position they need to draft probably somewhere on day 2 or early day 3, somewhere between anywhere between round 2 and 5, preferably somewhere maybe in the round 3 or 4 range. I think you find good middle linebackers there. You don't want to go too early, in my opinion, on that. But yeah, they'll need to upgrade that, no doubt. And I think they will. That and defensive line. But overall, there's a lot of things to like. This is a much, much better game than what we saw before. And this is, I think it's going to, look more like this moving forward. I think, Kyler is going to make this offense go in the way the other quarterbacks, that have played, the way Josh Dobbs is. And listen, God bless Josh Dobbs. He's having a nice time there in Minnesota. They're going to appreciate him. And then he's going to come down to earth like he does and make some, miss some of those throws. And I think they're probably at some point going to feel like we did, right? You love him at first and you love his personality and his character, but eventually, he starts missing some of those throws. That's just what happens with Dobbs. It's what happened here. That's why he's not a permanent starter, right? That's why he's bounced around. He does enough things to be competitive and to be a good backup. So, but Kyler is going to run this offense in ways that he couldn't. And, one other thing I noticed, and I think maybe other people maybe talked about this. I don't know. I haven't really followed what other people have said about this, but you may or may not have noticed that they kept Kyler in shotgun a lot. He was under center a little bit. And this was a question, a lot of people have asked, well, how's Kyler going to do under center? And well, I mean, he only had, a limited number of snaps under center. They looked good. So it'll be interesting to watch. Is Kyler in shotgun something that they plan to stick with? Did they do that because they want to cater the offense to him and that's what he does best? And they're only going to put him under center when they need to for some plays? Or was this more easing him back in, right? His first game back. And as time goes on, we're going to want to watch and see, do they see him? Do we see fewer snaps in the shotgun and we see him more under center, or do we see him stay in shotgun? So that's the thing I'm going to be watching. It'll be interesting to see with Kyler, but he certainly looked good. I think even if he's in shotgun, they're still doing some different things in this offense that really, I think, are, that make it a more of an NFL offense than what we saw, with Cliff Kingsbury. Thunder's asking, do you think Vikings have a better O-line, more separation by the receivers, and that upgrades Dobbs' potential? I mean, I think they probably have a little bit better offensive line. They've got some nice players there. In fact, let's go look at them real quick. Where the Vikings see in terms of receivers. I mean, when Jefferson comes back, but he's just now getting ready to come back from injury. I mean, their offensive line, yeah. I mean, Darrisaw is really good. O'Neal, yeah. So he's Bradbury, Reisner's. Little Dalton Reisner's struggling a little bit, but he's okay-ish. Yeah, so they have a better offensive line right now, looks like. I mean, Addison's nice, Hawkinson, good tight end, but I wouldn't say they have better receivers right now with Jefferson out. When Jefferson's back, we know what he does. So, I think the offensive line helps him certainly. You know what? I'm sorry. I didn't even have this on the screen. Here we go. I'm looking at this, not showing to you. So the offensive line, the Vikings offensive line, solid, right? The receivers, Addison's nice, Hawkinson, but yeah. So I don't know, I mean, I think he has a team to work with there. Dobbs, Minnesota, that probably had overall was more, especially on the offensive line, was doing a better job for him. So yeah. So I think, things are turning, going in a good direction for right now with Kyler back. I think this is going to be the second half of the season, right? Yeah, Brian. Yeah, listen. When Jefferson's back, the problem is he's not back yet. He should be back soon, right? Yeah. So Jefferson plus anyone is a really good receiving core. But I think the second half of the season is going to be very different. I think we're going to see more wins, than just this one. I think I don't know that they're going to go on a huge run, but I think the offense is going to look competent. And I think there's a lot, it's going to be very exciting. So, well, hey, thank you for everyone for being here. This is what we're, this has been Making the Grade. I'm going to throw up the channel member shout outs, and then we're going to get the theme song on and get out of here. But this is going to be, things are looking up. I'm excited about what the second half of the season is going to look like. And I'm excited. And, I've been a Kyler Murray defender and believer for a long time. And I think his revenge tour is getting ready to start. So I'm pretty excited about that. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for being here. Channel member shout outs coming up. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.
Hey, yo, it's Joe.